No, that's a private matter. I have no comment. But only you would ask that. No, that's a private matter. I have no comment. But only you would ask that.
Will be DACA. We'll give them a road to citizenship.
Oh, whoops. Joe Biden finally acknowledges his seventh grandchild. Put up stockings for the dog, but not the grandkid. And all of a sudden, she exists. Trump has a defamation lawsuit against CNN dropped by a judge, but also a judge that he appointed. Hunter Biden's BFF is supposed to testify behind closed doors in Congress today, and rent is due in California. But back pay from COVID rent finally coming due. All that and more coming up on this episode of Daily Caller Live. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name is Jobob. Daily Caller Live starts right now.
Here we go!
That might be the only brown guy on earth named Jobob.
That is actually their name, Jobob.
Right! From the dingy bunker, completely cut off from the outside world, except for you fine folks. My name is Jobob. This is Daily Caller Live. Thanks so much for tuning in on today. It is Monday, July 31st, year of our Lord 2023. Interesting things happened over the weekend. Friday afternoon, as news dumps generally happen about Friday afternoon. I don't know if this was a news dump necessarily, but in a closed to cameras chat with donors, Joe Biden finally acknowledged his granddaughter from Hunter and the woman in, I believe, North Carolina. But first, I want to get to this because that does play a factor in what we're talking about today. But I do want to get to this. Trump had a $475 million lawsuit against CNN for the use of the words "the big lie." A judge has tossed that. A former judge has dismissed former President Trump's $475 million defamation lawsuit against CNN, in which he accused the networks of associating him with Hitler by describing his this Axios' words, not mine, their perceived false 2020 election claims as, quote unquote, the big lie. The former president's lawyers said they filed the lawsuit in October, and the term was associated with Nazi propaganda that was used to persecute Jewish people, but the Trump-appointed judge said that this was not defamatory. Now, this article goes on, obviously it has a perspective, to say this is the big picture. Defamation lawsuits have become increasingly common among high-powered figures who look to challenge the media's First Amendment rights. No, I don't think that's the case. Now, that's the headline. The question is, what is going on with the defamation lawsuits that Trump is filing? I feel like I've been saying this for a while, and I've been wondering what's happening, and I kind of feel like I have a better understanding of what is going on between the media and also with Donald Trump. You may not like some of this analysis. This is what I think. I've been wondering why Trump / the Trump administration / people in the Trump administration haven't been filing defamation lawsuits against a whole host of people. The entirety of the lefty media during the Russian collusion thing, especially people like Adam Schiff. Can you file defamation lawsuits against members of Congress who say things on the congressional record? I don't actually know, but I feel like you should. Why hasn't anybody filed a defamation lawsuit on that? And okay, say you can say reasonably that the quote-unquote Russian collusion, because so many people were saying it, made it seem like you actually believed it, because the whole thing with defamation is knowingly saying things that are untrue to damage an individual. If they can reasonably make the claim of, well, we actually believe this, okay, fine. What about all of the doctors, quote-unquote doctors, the infectious disease professionals that signed on to that letter saying it definitely didn't come from a lab because Trump said it did come from a lab? Where's that? Because a lot of them knowingly lied on that document that was put together by a person who had a vested interest in making sure that nobody thought it was coming from a lab. Okay, well, not even that. What about the 51 intelligence agents that signed on to the letter saying the Hunter Biden laptop was definitely Russian disinformation. Pretty clearly a lie, especially now that we know that the FBI knew that that laptop was definitely Hunter's, and who faced damages for that? Donald Trump probably did a lot of damage in the election that he ended up losing. So the question is that I've been having is, why are there no lawsuits against all of these sorts of things? And I think I might have found the answer in this particular defamation lawsuit. Like I mentioned, and this is from Axios, the $475 million defamation lawsuit got tossed by a judge. Now, get this, in case you're talking about politics of, well, the guy is always fighting an uphill battle in legal wranglings. That could be the case, but the judge that threw it out was a Trump-appointed U.S. district judge, saying it was not defamatory. And as I look at it, trying to be objective here, I don't know that this is the best case. The lawsuit was claiming that the use of the term, quote unquote, the big lie, was associating with Nazi propaganda, and that verbiage was used. That's not what I'm saying, is that that wasn't used. What I'm saying is that seems like a weak defamation case. And considering that all of the other defamation cases to be made would seem to be much better, in my opinion, why then is this something that the Trump attorneys are going after? Unless, of course, from a political standpoint, you recognize that Trump has built a political career, around being treated unfairly. And I'm not saying that's not a knock necessarily, but the guy is the most unfairly treated politician probably ever. And I'll get to some evidence of that in a couple seconds. But the bottom line is, I'm wondering if, in the vein of being treated unfairly, because that's his whole thing, that's his shtick, and it's worked out pretty dang well for him because the media is so unfair to him. I wonder if this, which in my opinion is a weak defamation lawsuit, I wonder if this is another bite at the apple to make it seem as if he's being treated unfairly. Especially with all of the other defamation suits that could have been filed. And in my opinion, I'm curious why they haven't been filed yet. Now you may be thinking, well, would people do that? Would someone try to not necessarily get to the bottom of something for political purposes? Well, the answer is yes. Here's something that's just objectively true, in my opinion, which I realize contradicts itself. But here's something that I think is 100% true. A political actor doing something in their best interest for their party politically, despite how damaging it is. After the January 6th protests and riot at the Capitol, which I think we can all agree was not good, Nancy Pelosi, the then Speaker of the House, could have impeached Donald Trump and removed him and barred him from running for office again. I think there could have been a specific thing, or there could have been a broad strokes impeachment of kind of just, whatever you want to call it, danger to society, whatever you want to do. And whether or not you think it's fair is irrelevant. I'm just saying the fever pitch at the time, Nancy Pelosi could have impeached Donald Trump on something broad, and there was enough votes in the House to impeach, and there was enough votes in the Senate to convict. And Democrats could have eliminated Donald Trump as a political threat from here until the end of time. But they didn't. Instead, Nancy Pelosi, cynically, who claims to hate Donald Trump's politics more than anything in the world, decided to impeach him on something extremely specific that you could not get Republican senators to go along with. So Nancy Pelosi decided that rather than do what, in her own words, would have been best for her party, she decided to make it a political issue and raise campaign dollars. So all I'm trying to say here is politicians do this sort of thing, and I've been wondering why Donald Trump hasn't been filing lawsuits against the whole host of people that just say things that are objectively untrue. And maybe it's because he does pretty well when people are unfair to him. And maybe this was a shot at saying, look at how unfair I'm being treated again. This lawsuit gets dismissed. In my opinion, didn't seem like it was a strong enough lawsuit to begin with. Now, I've got a clip that kind of brings the point home of just treated super unfairly. And maybe I'm going to play this clip. This is an old-ish clip. Donald Trump talking about DACA. DACA, the deferred action for what is it? Oh, geez, I'm brain farting here. Somebody type in what the specific DACA is. The deferred action for immigrant kids, but I forget what the C is. Basically, the U.S. government is not going to prosecute anybody who came over to the United States illegally as a kid. He says in this particular clip that he is planning to do something that would create a pathway to citizenship for DACA, and Democrats were against it. Check this out.
We're probably going to then be taking it out. We're working out the legal complexities right now, but I'm going to be signing a very major immigration bill as an executive order, which Supreme Court now, because of the DACA decision, has given me the power to do that. One of the aspects of the bill is going to be DACA. We're going to have a road to citizenship.
Okay, so that's as an executive order, not as a congressional bill.
If you look at the Supreme Court ruling, they gave the president tremendous powers when they said that you could take in this case, 700,000 or so people. Right. So they gave powers. Based on the powers that they gave, I'm going to be doing an immigration bill. One of the aspects of the bill that you'll be very happy with and that a lot of people will be, including me and a lot of Republicans, by the way, will be DACA. We'll give them a road to citizenship.
Yeah. So the only reason I wanted to play that is that there's so much talk about Donald Trump is a racist and xenophobic and doesn't want people here. No, the guy espoused thoroughly reasonable policy, including a policy in this particular case, which I don't think he has the power to do, but the Supreme Court and Obama's DACA and all that sort of stuff, we won't get into that. But a lot of Obama would have agreed with this. So why then is the guy villainized? One, because he does stick his foot in his mouth sometimes. I'll give you that. But at the same time, just being treated horribly unfairly. And how this works out to this defamation thing, I wonder if this is leaning into him being treated unfairly, which he has done pretty well with politically. But that's enough of that. I want to move on to this. Let's see. Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden's BFF is in a closed-door testimony today. We won't talk much about this because I want to move on to the other Joe Biden stuff. But Devin Archer, Hunter's BFF/business partner, is set to testify behind closed doors in a congressional hearing today. That Hunter Biden more than 24 times called Joe Biden during business meetings/dealings with various business entities across the globe while Joe Biden was vice president and was influence peddling. I don't need to rehash, I think, everything going on here. The only reason I want to bring that up is because I would like to say this. I'm a little bit concerned about the whole closed door thing. I think I understand it from a legal standpoint. I'm sure Devin Archer, who's this guy's name, has some attorneys that are horribly scared of what is going to happen to their client. But the fact that it's behind closed doors, here's what's going to happen. It's not really even a concern of mine. It's just a roll my eyes and go, ugh, seriously? This guy is going to testify behind closed doors, supposedly that like I said, Joe Biden and Hunter Biden were working to peddle Joe Biden's influence while he was the vice president. When this hearing is done, the people in Congress that are in this closed door hearing will be sprinting. Not even a fast-paced walk, not even a jog, not even a run. In full-blown sprint. The second those doors open, Republicans in the congressional committee hearing and Democrats in the congressional committee hearing, and independents in case they exist in this particular committee hearing, will be in a full-blown Usain Bolt-esque sprint to the cameras to lie about what happened in there or exaggerate. Now, from a compelling standpoint, I'm probably going to believe the people that say, yeah, he said all of the things we thought he was going to say, as opposed to the other Congress people who are going to say, this closed-door meeting proves that Joe Biden did nothing wrong. But one of the problems, again, I have with closed-door meetings is we can't agree on what happened when testimony is in front of a camera. The whistleblowers 2 weeks ago that testified on camera, was it 2 weeks ago or last week, that testified, we did not do any of the things to Hunter Biden that we would do to a regular person who is in this situation. That on-camera testimony was still divided across the aisles. MSNBC and CNN saying one thing, Fox News saying the other thing. Again, I believe the more compelling cases which say, these guys seem pretty dang credible. But that is on camera in front of the TV. This is behind closed doors with allegations that are a ton more serious. So what is going to happen, whether you like it or not, is both sides are going to be in a full dead heat sprint to the camera to get their side of this story out immediately. I wouldn't be surprised. I would, if I were in Congress and I were trying to, and this is so cynical of me, but regardless of what side I was on, I would have my chief of staff or my PR person, my comms person, out at the cameras as it's happening. And then the second the hearing ended, I would text go and then say, start talking. Just start talking to the cameras, whatever we want. But again, this is me being incredibly cynical about all politicians. I think what's going to go on in this hearing has a chance to blow the lid off of this whole Joe Biden influence peddling scheme. But at the end of the day, closed doors is closed doors. So there is that. I want to get to this because I think this is fascinating and interesting. And also, what are we doing here, Internet? Not sure if I lost the feed or what's going on. All right, there we go. I want to get to this because I think this is another interesting component, and I want to just make a case that I've made before, that Joe Biden is a bad person. And that doesn't bother me. I assume that politicians are bad people. That's just the assumption that I go under. They don't make the same family decisions as I do. They don't make the same moral decisions as I do. All I care about is whether or not they try to increase the power of the government or lessen the power of the government. I am pro lessening the power of the government because the government is bad at doing things and therefore should do less things. The bottom line is that a lot of people vote for Joe Biden because they think, oh, he's just a lovable grandpa. Can't do anything wrong. No. Joe Biden over the weekend finally acknowledged that he has a granddaughter via Hunter Biden, and I hate calling her a former stripper, but that's just factually true. What seems to be a caring mother in this country that has a kid with Hunter Biden, who I believe met while she was in an occupation that seems... That's what's going on. Why does this matter? Well, I want you to look at this video, and we will discuss why it matters on the other side. Check it out.
Meeting with the mayor. I'm wondering if you have a comment on this. report and court filing out of Arkansas that your son Hunter just made you a grandfather again?
No, that's a private matter. I have no comment.
But
only you would ask that.
We gotta go.
I'm
Thank
meeting
you.
You're a good man. You're a good man.
Thank you guys. This is all
Classy.
the time we have.
That's fascinating. He says that's a private matter. I'm not talking about that. But you're a good man is what a classy question. That's just dumpster diving questioning there. I believe that was Peter Doocy asking that question. However, what is not classy is the fact that the current president has not acknowledged the granddaughter, who's 4 years old and knows that Hunter's her dad and knows that her grandpa is the president of the United States. I'm going to play a clip from, I think it's CNN, talking about another guy who's making the same case. And I've been saying this, and I've wondered why nobody else is saying this. But the reason that this matters is because Joe Biden benefits from the depiction of him as a nice family man. He's not. He's a politician. He just isn't. That's not the way these people operate. And so what I want to say is this is not like a policy debate or this or that, the other thing. But if emotionally you get swayed by the kind old grandpa who loves his grandkids and would do anything for them, you need to eliminate that from your calculus when it comes to the voting booth. When it comes down to vote for who's the president of the United States or who's Congress member, the whole family man guy thing should be just out of the question entirely. Watch this. This is a guy on CNN making the point that I've been making. Finally, check this out.
Voters relate to having struggles in their own families. They root for people with vulnerabilities. They root for people who understand and relate to them. And, ultimately, the Bidens are a real family, just like everyone else.
Sure. But, Scott Jennings, the president has made being a family man a central part of his political identity.
It's not Republicans, with all due respect, who made Hunter Biden into a complete scumbag on this and other issues. The ignoring his own daughter for 4 years, and the president of the United States hanging up a stocking for the dog, and not for his 7th grandchild.
Okay, look, we can also have sympathy for people who are struggling with addiction. Let's keep this conversation respectful.
Listen, I totally agree. And you know where I'm from? A lot of families deal with addiction. And you know who ends up picking up the pieces? The grandparents. And in this case, the grandparents would not acknowledge this little girl. It is offensive. But the bottom line is...
But they have now.
Oh, what a hero.
I like that. Well, they have acknowledged now. Nah, that doesn't... Public pressure pressuring you into doing something right that you've resisted for the entirety of this time doesn't mean that you're now righteous. That means you've caved to public pressure, which probably makes you worse of a person. So this is interesting. This is what I'm talking about. I don't know who this is. Yolanda says Joe Biden is a great person and a much better Prathan. I don't even know what that term means. Much better, than Trump. I think it's supposed to say. Period. See, this is I think what I'm talking about. That depiction that you've bought in your mind that Joe Biden is a good person is just inaccurate. Like, I don't. This is not a policy thing. This is not a I stand for this or that or this or that. No, this is just cold hard politics. And I don't want to. Donald Trump made some interesting life decisions that, again, I would not make personally at all. That being said, I don't think he tried to hide it all that much. The guy has 5 kids with 3 different women, and nobody was trying to hide any of that sort of stuff. I don't know. I guess you can say the Stormy Daniels thing tried to make that go away, but I don't. That whole instance wasn't surprising at all, let alone out of character for what I thought a Manhattan billionaire, how they would live their life. So yeah, interesting. Joe Biden is a great person and much better than Trump, period. maybe you're letting your ideological blinders get the best of you. And look, we can come to a disagreement. You can vote for Joe Biden, or you can vote for Donald Trump, or you can vote for Republicans, or you can vote for Democrats. All I'm trying to say is take the, well, they're a good person out of your brain when it comes to voting for a person for president of the United States. Because you like a person should have no bearing on whether or not you think they can do the job. If a transgender, minority, LGBTQ, whatever person that I would not live my life like at all ran for president on, I will eliminate half of the federal government, I'm voting for that person. I guess it depends on where they stand on the trans kids things. But if they say, yeah, we're not doing the trans kids thing, after you're adult, do what you want. But also, we're cutting the federal government in half. I'm voting for that person. I do not care about the, I guess, personal life decisions, family decisions that a president makes. And if you do care about that sort of thing, I want you to look at Joe Biden as a case in point of why you should not. But anyways, I digress. Let's see. Check this out. I think this is interesting. Entirely divergent of topics, but I also, I don't know, had an interesting experience with this over the weekend. First of all, we talked about this last week. COVID-era policies are coming to an end next month, tomorrow, August, which I thought, and probably many of you watching this will think, there were still COVID-era emergency policies? Yes, there were. People still don't have to submit a work requirement to get government benefits for unemployment. People haven't needed to pay rent for the back rent that is due. People haven't been needing to make their payments for college, for loans, student loans. A lot of things haven't had to happen until like now. Like August, September, October is when a lot of these things get instituted. Now, over the weekend, went to a restaurant and watched. I want to get too into this because I do like this restaurant. We watched the staff there clean a table so slowly as if there was no urgency or care for their job whatsoever. Now, in the climate, it's hard to say, it's hard to blame them. But you wonder, why is it that, and this, I say that because we just ended up leaving. We watched a person try to clean the table and talk and do all on their phone the entire time and not care at all that they turned away 8 different parties for this particular restaurant because of the apathy towards getting people in and seated and all this. It's a bad business model. I don't want to go into that. All I'm trying to say is people do not care about their jobs. Why don't they care about their jobs? Because employers can't find employees to do anything. In all sectors, you can't find a person to take out the trash at an office building. You can't find a person to do anything anywhere at any point. And everybody's wondering, why is that? Well, this would probably be a good example. The fact that there's no work requirement, hasn't been a work requirement for unemployment. People haven't had to pay their back rent. People haven't had to pay their college tuition. So I, as a person who wants to see the free market work, and as a person who has experience with people not being able to do jobs or have services provided, am super excited for all of the people that have milked the COVID emergency to finally get off their butts or needs to get off their butts to go work. Now, in Los Angeles specifically, landlords could be evicting people because renters who didn't pay rent because there was a more... The CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, apparently has jurisdiction over housing, which is crazy. The Supreme Court said, no, you don't. And then the Biden administration says, yes, we do, ignoring the Supreme Court and therefore the Constitution, which is probably an impeachable offense. All of that. People didn't have to pay rent because the CDC said they didn't need to from March of 2020 to September of 2021. 18 months, effectively. People didn't need to pay rent. Now, that didn't mean the rent got eliminated. That just meant that for a temporary period, the landlord had to eat that debt. Now, there's a deadline. August 1st is when renters have to pay that 18 months of back pay. If you pay $1,000 a month, which is pretty absurdly cheap, you owe $18,000 to your landlord, or else they can legally evict you now. This is the time period. The time period has ended in which a tenant needs to figure out all of the back pay. And if you're a person who's getting unemployment without a work requirement, who owes now $18,000 to a landlord, chances are, I think what we're going to see is a lot of evictions, but also a lot of people who now need to go back to work freaking finally in order to support themselves. And I am all for it. Again, it is crazy the fact that this many people have been able to skate by. And also the fact that a lot of us didn't know this. I think I had been talking about this, like, what the heck is happening with the economy? Yeah, I had no idea that people were still able to collect unemployment without work benefits or without work requirements. They were still skating on the 18 months of rent that they didn't pay. Like, yeah, I have a feeling, one, here's what I think is going to end up happening. A lot of these people are going to have to go back to work. Now, just from a numbers perspective, the Los Angeles City Council is putting in place, like, easing of these particular units. They think it covers about 400,000 units of people who are at risk of being evicted because they didn't pay for 18 months and they still haven't figured it out. Let's just say, hypothetically, 2.5 people live in each place. And I'm just using that as a statistic because I'm sure there's 4 people and then there's 1 people and anything in between. 2.5 people. So that's about 1 million doors, 1 million units that are going to be affected by this and have to have people go back to work. 1 million units is Los Angeles, what, has 4 million people living in it? So it's a fourth of the population of Los Angeles is going to be affected by this. I think what's going to happen is a lot of those people are going to have to go back to work. And when those people go back to work, good news, the economy is going to be booming. Bad news, that's going to cause inflation to spike yet again. And I'm wondering if the Fed is keeping that in mind. I guess we'll see. We'll see in 6 months. I will either have been right, and all of those people are going to have to go back to work, which I think is a good thing, but also interest rates are going to have to go up because more people going back to work means more economic movement, which means inflation, which is not good. Dang. I don't know. I'll either be right or wrong, but I guess we'll see either way. But anyways, that'll do it for us today. Appreciate you sticking around, tuning in. Let's see. Wherever you're watching, if you wouldn't mind clicking on the like button, the little share button. We stream to, I think 15 different places. So wherever you're watching this, would appreciate you doing so. If you haven't already, give me a follow on any of your social media platforms. Just type in JOBOB. Pretty much anywhere. If you are a hate watcher, which I've now learned that term, somebody who watches out of hate, know that I appreciate it. If you wouldn't mind commenting on things that I can bring them on the screen, that would be fantastic. But again, really, really appreciate you doing that. Really helps us in the algorithm. So thank you for doing so. Yeah, just type in JOB pretty much anywhere you'll be able to find me. Tickets are on sale for the Fallbrook Comedy Show September 23rd. They will be on sale for Arkansas and Oklahoma next week, I believe. But keep an eye out for that. And any and all of the other things, you can find me on social media and we can converse there. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place, unless I'm at the hospital because we have a baby being due any second now. See you then, but also maybe not. God bless America.